Will the prisoner's dilemma come into play again in tonight's draft? Will Todd Gurley continue to free fall? And what will be the result after all the dust is settled after this draft tonight? Follow along with the live draft board and listen to our analysis as we call the action from the 2020 FFPC Pros vs. Joes Thin Lizzy League number 3 to see who will win a 2021 FFPC main event team. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Let's begin now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Hey, thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Gerzakinetics tuning in again. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, as always, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Tonight, it is the third of 6 special episodes for you this year. It's the Pros versus Joes Thin Lizzy League number 3 draft tonight, and we'll be covering it for you for about an hour and a half. Follow the live draft board at youtube.com/high-stakes-fantasy-football. Shout out to the chat room for everybody hanging out in there. If you want to have any questions answered, post them in there. You can also connect with us on Twitter at HSFFhour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. Facebook.com/HSFFhour is where to reach us there. 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA if you wanted to give us a call tonight and talk with us and ask us some questions about the draft. Or if you're drafting tonight, feel free to give us shout us a holler and let us know what you're thinking as you're watching the draft tonight. highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com is where to reach us there. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails throughout the segment or throughout the broadcast tonight here in the show. Our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce and our producer, mutual friend Rob, will help me out with that. I don't know if you saw the news today, but we extended that the deadline by 24 hours for the 2020 main event early draft slot announcement, so you can still get in by midnight Pacific time tonight. Make sure you're paid off, and you will find out what your draft slot is by August 2nd. As a reminder, if you already have some teams in the FFPC main event, you can sign up for an additional team or additional teams, and you get $400 off the regular sticker price for every team that you add on. So square those balances away at myffpc.com. Here is the lineup that we have for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Drafting first from Draft Sharks, it's Jared Smola, former co-host of the show, actually. An 11-time FFPC high-stakes champ, Kevin Proctor, is the Joe in the second spot. Fighting Chance Fantasies, Brian Drake, and Pro Football Focus, Dwayne McFarland, splitting the team at 3. Eric Rubin, who you follow on Twitter at JungleCatsFF, he is cleaning things up at the 4 spot. Football Guys co-founder David Dodds in the 5, followed by a guy we just had on the show probably about a month ago, Mark Davidson, along with Jacob Broder, 7-time FFPC high-stakes league championships among them. They're drafting 6th. From Sharp Football Analysis, it's Rich Rebar in the 7th. The 2015-16 back-to-back High Society $50,000 winner Glenn Lowy is picking 8th. Fade the Noises, Brad Evans will be drafting 9th. A former Football Guys league champ, Matthew Jacobson, in the 10th spot. Roto Grinders, Josh Hornsby, Fantasy ADHD, he is in the 11th. And then Scott Kobe, a former football FFPC Best Ball League champ, will be drafting 12th. Dave, we're already a full round in, and no huge surprises, but I do have a story I want to tell you after we get through this round.
Oh, please tell me a story, Walter.
Smola takes Christian McCaffrey at the 101. Finally, we get Saquon Barkley going at the 102 tonight. First time it's happened in Pros versus Joes this season. Barkley to Proctor at 2. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think Kevin Proctor is a big Penn State Saquon Barkley guy.
Oh, well, that went well for him.
Yes, it did. Ezekiel Elliott to Drake and McFarland at 3. Alvin Kamara to Eric Rubin at 4. Michael Thomas, first receiver off the board to David Dodds. Travis Kelce to Mark Davidson and Jacob Rotter at the 6th spot. That is the first tight end off the board. Not the only tight end of the first round. Dalvin Cook to Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis at the 7. Miles Sanders to Glenn Lowy at 8. Derrick Henry to Brad Evans at the 9 spot. The second tight end drafted in the first round tonight, Matthew Jacobson takes George Kittle, and then you get Josh Hornsby taking Nick Chubb, and Scott Kobe taking Devontae Adams. Shane Hallam checking in the chat room, Dave, says he's loving the slim so far this year. This is something, a bit of a...
Me and you both there, Shane.
Yeah, a bit of a departure from what we've done in Pros vs. Joes in the past. Normally we do a 28-round best ball format. This year it's an 18-round best ball slim. No kickers, no defenses, and only 18 rounds. 60-second clock this year, too, as opposed to the 90. So these things
much
have been
tighter,
lasting about 70, 75 minutes for these slims. And we'll have all the coverage, plus we'll go through the team analysis, as always, at the end of the program. So the thing I wanted to bring up today, I was talking with 2 of my local radio cohorts. And actually the 2 guys that helped me host the local fantasy football show here in Northeast Wisconsin, the award-winning Appleton Trophy Fantasy Football Show, Dave. And they're kind of just getting warmed up for the season. You know, they just play basement leagues, local leagues, whatever. And my buddy Alex, my co-host, he says, hey, Balky, I was looking at one of the FFPC drafts that just got over with that you've been covering this week for Pros vs. Joes. I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, is Miles Sanders really going in the late first round? I'm like, oh, yeah. And they couldn't understand why. And this is something that we have talked about in the past. That we were never a big believer in investing in an Eagles running back early. But this year, it might be a little bit different, and Sanders could be the guy that finally ends that trend, or at least temporarily ends that trend as far as we look forward to 2020. If you were drafting in the back end, Dave, would you be willing to take Miles Sanders at the end of the first round, or would you look elsewhere?
Oh, yeah, I'd be willing to look at him. I think we kind of talked about him last night. I thought Derrick Henry at the 9 pick was a nice pick for Brad Evans, so I probably would have taken Henry over Sanders, but that's just that's where I'm kind of leaning. I do like Mixon too, but you have to really be a believer in Joe Burrow to really think the offense is going to produce enough so he's going to score some touchdowns.
I thought this was kind of interesting, and I don't know, I haven't looked to see what's going on at the last couple of nights, but Dalvin Cook reported today to Vikings training camp, and there was some discussion, he may not report, he may hold out because he wants a new deal. He reported, and I think this is the latest he's gone in Pros vs. Jones so far, is he falls to the 7th spot tonight. I like that spot for Dalvin Cook. In fact, if I was, and I don't know if David Dodds considered him at 5. By the way, did you bully him into a phone call? Do you think we'll hear from him tonight?
Oh, I forgot. I can email him right now.
Okay. Make sure it's polite. Don't...
I always am polite to Dodds, except in person.
Okay.
Because then you have the nuance of the in person stuff. So.
Knowing what we know now that Dalvin Cook has reported, if you were picking 5th in this draft, and you were deciding between Dalvin Cook and Michael Thomas, would you end up going with Michael Thomas, given how high his ceiling could be? How crazy his 2019 was, or would you rather get that bell cow running back in Dalvin Cook at 5?
Yeah, I would not be taking Michael Thomas myself, so I'd like Dodds to call in and defend it.
Okay, but so
I would take Dalvin Cook.
You would, okay, all right, fair enough.
If you recall correctly, I also said not to discount Dalvin Cook whatsoever, and that you should still draft him early, and looks like that was correct.
It's why
he's got one thing right.
It's why he's the patron saint of fantasy football.
There's a ton more wrong in the next 75 minutes, Bob.
Well, that could be, but let's make sure that we have the chance to get him wrong. So I'm going to take you through the second round here, you and the listeners, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Mixon to Scott Kobe to go with Devontae Adams. Kenyon Drake is the running back start for Josh Hornsby behind Nick Chubb. Josh Jacobs and Matthew Jacobson at the 203. Julio Jones at the 204. Followed by another wide receiver. Glenn Lowy takes Tyreek Hill at the 205. The second team to start running back tonight is Rich Hribar, who pairs Austin Eckler with his first-round pick, Dalvin Cook. DeAndre Hopkins to Mark Davidson there as he goes tight end receiver. Hopkins is going to be the 5th receiver off the board tonight. Aaron Jones to David Dodds. at the 208 tonight, followed by Chris Godwin, Buccaneers receiver, to Eric Rubin at the 209. The 210 is Mark Andrews, the third tight end off the board. And then Godwin's real-life teammate, Mike Evans, to Kevin Proctor at the 211. James Conner at the 212. That will round up the second round. And Smola is one of three teams, along with Rebar and Hornsby, to start off running back. So three of the pros, the industry pros, Dave, start off running back. And, I think I've brought this up on the show before. I've probably done more early drafting this year than, I guess it's not early anymore, but I did a lot of drafts earlier this year, and I felt like I started off a lot of them running back this year. And I don't know if that's the quote-unquote correct thing to do. I know the good thing is to take value where it comes. You don't usually get a whole lot of value in these pros versus Joes drafts, but it's interesting that three of the pros felt that the value was in starting running back. We'll see how they cobble together those receivers and tight ends as we move on. You and I have talked about this previously. I don't know if the pros versus Joes listeners are necessarily privy to this. Which Buccaneers receiver do you prefer this year? Do you like the Mike Evans, or are you going with Chris Godwin after his big 2019 season?
Well, as I stated last night, Bulky, I prefer Chris Godwin.
Did you really state that last night?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I thought we had this conversation like 2 months ago.
Yep.
Good God. I got to start listening to you when you talk.
Yeah, you ask me questions and then you don't listen to what I say.
You said why then, obviously? I don't need to bore the listeners.
Well, I mean, Godwin, assuming he's going to command targets. Brady's not a deep ball thrower, so Mike Evans, that's more his game. And, in that offense, it goes back to commanding all those targets. Godwin is the one he's the one who gets them. I just feel that. I also feel like Gronk is going to take away some red zone action from Mike Evans, so I think that's a little bit of a concern there. But nothing wrong with Mike Evans. Don't get me wrong. I think Godwin went at pick like 11 last night, so Jungle Cats by comparison got him a little bit later. So
yeah, no question there. Nothing else really sticking out to me in the second round. We've talked about the. Here's one thing I'm almost positive we have not discussed. The Raiders games last year, when the Raiders had leads or were in close games where they could afford to run the ball a lot, Josh Jacobs rarely came off the field, Dave. In games where the Raiders were down by double digits, multiple touchdowns, Josh Jacobs was rarely on the field, and it was the Jalen Richard show out there catching passes. I don't know how you fall in on this. I am not comfortable taking him in the late first or early second, knowing that his own team does not trust him enough to be out there in pass catching or pass protecting situations.
I thought there's been news that says that they're going to really make more of a concerted effort to make Jacobs a 3-down back, and so I'm on board with Jacobs in that.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, right. I like him. I think he's a good talent. Going from his first year to second year, I think he had a fine season as a rookie, and I think that he'll actually improve as a second-year player. And I think the team is going to be better overall, too.
Do you think Austin Eckler had his best season last year, or does he have? Can he even be better this year? I mean, I know he can. Do you think he will?
I do not think he'll do better than last year. I think that he's a little undersized, but they did pay him, so. I guess
it wasn't girly money for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd be passing on him for Aaron Jones, for example, and they usually go in the kind of the same spot. I think Aaron Jones goes after him generally, so I probably would take Jones over.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, the ADP we're going to refer to tonight is from FantasyMojo.com. Darren Armani, who not only does a great job putting together everything FFPC related. For, whether it be draft boards or ADP, the FFPC warehouse is on FantasyMojo.com, and he does a great job with that. In Best Ball Slim ADP, which is the format that we're looking at right now, Aaron Jones, Dave, typically goes at the 207 over the last week, and then you're looking at between Jones and Eckler. Eckler is actually going at the 204. So basically, they were kind of on brand tonight as far as those players go.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the third round here. Zach Ertz to Jared Smola from Draft Sharks to lead things off here at the 301. He is the fourth tight end off the board. Allen Robinson to Kevin Proctor is his number 2 receiver. DJ Moore will be the first receiver for Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland here. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, back-to-back quarterbacks. Jackson to Rubin, Patrick Mahomes to Dodds. Todd Gurley to Mark Davidson and Jacob Rotter. And then you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Rich Rebar. And as Henry Muto, who's in our BTR chat right now, points out, Rebar is actually the first team to take 3 running backs to start the draft The previous 24 teams, the last 2 nights, nobody did it in pros versus Joes. He is
kind of crazy, actually.
Rebar is the first one to go running back. Kenny Golladay right after that. After the Edwards-Helaire pick to Rebar, Golladay to Glenn Lowy, at the 308. Leonard Fournette is the number 2 running back for Brad Evans. Amari Cooper to Matthew Jacobson, followed by Odell Beckham and Calvin Ridley. All right, so let's try to unpack this here, Dave. Allen Robinson's the first player I want to talk about here. On average, he is normally going at the 310. He goes at the 302, and this is the Kevin Proctor, a guy who has played a metric ton of FFPC best balls, FFPC drafts here on this platform. And he went almost a full round ahead of where Robinson normally goes. I like Robinson too, Dave, but DJ Moore I think I would have rather had there. After that, I don't know. I think you can make a case that he's still the better selection over Golladay, Beckham, Ridley, any of the other third round. Cooper is interesting. I don't know how I'd fall in on that. But I like Robinson. 302 seems a little rich. We kind of talked about this yesterday with Juju, because Juju went in that early spot in the third. I think you're looking at, after Mike Evans, you have the next pack of like 5 or 6 receivers, or maybe you can call it 8. They're a little interchangeable. So unfortunately, I guess one could say unfortunately Proctor had to kind of reach, but he didn't. He just had to take a guy, the first player that he liked out of that second tier. It's interesting, too, because you think about it, and I know you build your team differently, but Allen Robinson could be a top 12 receiver, and he's the number 2 receiver for Kevin Proctor. That's one way of looking at it.
I mean, he should be a top 12 receiver. I mean, at least as far as where
what number
drafted him. I think he probably is. I'm guessing
wide receiver 9 is where he's drafted on average.
Right,
so he is being drafted
2,
as a starting
3, 4,
receiver.
5, 6, 7. So he went 8 here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's in range. Jackson and Mahomes kind of, semi sort of fell a little bit further than normal, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire usually goes a little earlier than that. So I think that's kind of where you're seeing, normally Robinson and Moore go just a teensy bit later.
Dave, Todd Gurley's celebrating tonight because he's no longer a 4th-round pick in the 2020 FFPC Pros versus Joes. Mark Davidson and Jacob Rotter take him at the 306 tonight. Still on average in best ball slims for the FFPC over the last week. He goes at the 301, so he's still being disrespected by these analysts. Take it for what it's worth. Clyde Edwards-Helaire slips a little bit tonight. Edwards-Helaire falls to the 307 to Rich Rebar from Sharp Football Analysis. He normally goes at the 211 in these drafts. Not sure why the slippage came in tonight. Maybe the Damian Williams hype train is getting some coal pumped in its furnace. I'm not sure.
I like that.
Well, thank you. And then as we look towards the end of the third round, I guess the player to bring up here, for me at least, is one Calvin Ridley, Dave. He normally goes, I just had it, live radio. That's great. 407.
Yeah.
I guess it's one of those things where Scott Colby, if he wants him, you got to take him there because he's not coming back to you after that. But I thought that was interesting. I like Ridley this year, though.
I do. I like Ridley a lot.
I think I got him in the Scott Fishbowl, and I feel like sometimes it's weird because don't you feel like for a large portion of Julio Jones's career, as talented as he's been and is, he gets disrespected by fantasy owners?
Julio?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because he's never been a touchdown machine, that people, and myself included, and also he gets hurt during the playoffs all the time. I always used to make jokes about it, and still probably will this year. But I mean, he gets so many targets, it's just nuts. And but you did lose. You got Hayden Hurst, you lost Cooper, or got rid of him, or whatever. And Ridley's, this is his third year.
Yeah.
And he was really good. He's kind of, it's interesting. He's kind of a touchdown machine actually for a lean. What is he, 6'1", 190 type player, 6'1", 190. He's actually really quite a productive touchdown scorer. So with Matt Ryan, and their schedule's always easy. They always have all these shootouts. I like Ridley.
Well, I guess the point I was trying to make with that is like, I feel like people have disrespected Julio Jones, not to like this massive degree where they let him slip to the 5th round or something. But I feel like if you're not going to get on board Julio Jones, then you should be getting on board Calvin Ridley. And I feel like people let Calvin Ridley slip because, well, Julio Jones is on the same team. We can't, and so you can't sort of have it both ways, which I think is interesting. But Ridley could be the de facto number 1. when and if Julio Jones ever moves on. We'll see what happens there. Or maybe Ridley moves on. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and if Gurley is healthy and actually more productive than Devonta Freeman, they have to pay attention to that. And so you have to bring the safeties up in the box a little bit. You can't be double covering. You can't double cover everybody. You know what I mean? So you really have to deal with all these weapons that they have, and this is a really elite offense.
Not to mention Todd Gurley is also in that offense, too. Melvin Gordon leading things off at the 4:01 tonight for Scott Colby as his number 2 running back. Josh Hornsby gets Juju Smith-Schuster to be his second wideout. Le'Veon Bell will be the running back pair with Josh Jacobs or Matthew Jacobson at the 4:03. Darren Waller, number 5 tight end drafted tonight. The first one for Brad Evans here at the 4:04. Chris Carson after that to Glenn Lowy as his number 2 running back. Rich Rebar, as we pointed out, started off with the wishbone attack with 3 straight running backs. He gets Adam Thielen in the 4th. David Johnson to Mark Davidson. And Jacob Rotter here to go with Todd Gurley. I feel like this is the second pairing we've had of Todd Gurley and David Johnson and the Pros versus Joes by the same team. I could be wrong. Cooper Kupp is the number 2 receiver for David Dodds. Jonathan Taylor off the board at the 4:09 to Eric Rubin and the Jungle Cats there. A.J. Brown to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland as they go a DJ-AJ attack for receivers. Raheem Mostert, the 4:11 pick for Kevin Proctor. And then Robert Woods is indeed the first wide receiver drafted by Jared Smola. I don't know if you saw the tweet from Jared Smola, who you can follow on Twitter, by the way, at SmolaDS, before this when he was talking about drafting tonight from the 1 spot. He said he was looking forward to the 101, not looking forward to the 2-3 turn. I don't know if you share Smola's thoughts on that, but Dave, for me, anytime I've ever had the 101, I've always just dealt with who's there at the 2-3 turn. Just give me the 101, and I'm not going to complain.
The thing is, your second pick is still the 24th overall player. It's fine. I know he's kind of probably goofing around, or he just doesn't like those players the way they are. But that's why Kevin Proctor dealt with it. He supposedly reached for Allen Robinson, but he just took the player he liked there. He take the best guy out of that next tier. I thought the Ertz pick was fine. And James Conner, that's a little early for James Conner, technically speaking, but who cares? Did you say he went to the 304? I think we've talked about James Conner's ADP.
Yeah.
So it's not really that early. It's just that's who you like the best there. It's fine.
By the way, too, just a friendly promotion. If you're not subscribing to DraftSharks.com, they just released their Comeback Player of the Year today, as well as the runner-up for that, if you're interested in either of those 2 players. And whether Jared will get either of those 2 players in the draft tonight, or did he already get one or both of them, you'll check that out at DraftSharks.com. I always look for it. That's one of the highlights for me for the fantasy offseason.
Yeah, I always like
the Comeback Player of the Year, the breakout pick, everything. I love that stuff at DraftSharks.
The thing is, it's not always correct. Generally, they do a fine job with it, but it's always well articulated, so they really go through it.
I know. I'm just convinced they're right because they have a lot of.
You sold me.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, man. Like I am so glad I have a bunch of smart people in my family and among my friends because I am the worst. I can be manipulated so easily. I get manipulated on this show week in and week out.
We should go to Morocco together and buy some carpets. You walk into like a carpet place. The Middle Eastern carpet market. You'd be like, oh, how much for this rug? $5,000. You'd be like, I'll take it. When you're actually supposed to talk them down to like $800.
Oh, I got a great story, not about rugs, but about trucks. After I got to tell you this. After I don't want to tell it on the air, but
why not?
Because it's stupid and nobody cares. My in-laws and my wife, when they were on a cruise, I think they bought some of these really expensive, like I don't know if it was Morocco, but it was somewhere Mediterranean.
Rugs?
Rugs. I don't know.
Iran, Iraq, all sorts of places.
No, it wasn't there. Somewhere they were on a Mediterranean cruise and they bought them. So
Egyptian, whatever. I don't know.
I have no idea what it was.
Either. So they did buy some.
We have one at our house. I have no idea. We have one at our house. We have like the
from that cruise. Did they ship it or they just bring it? What do they do?
I don't know how they got it home. I don't know if they shipped it or
how many
what.
rugs are? God, what a pain in
the
ass.
I don't know. We have a tiny one in our bedroom.
Right.
And my in-laws have the big one. And
give me the 9x12.
And my wife's
we'll
like,
put it with the luggage.
Now this is. I don't know if I'm just not cultured or whatever.
Yeah.
But my wife's like, oh my God, look at this rug I bought. Like this is so great. I'm like,
hand woven. Little kids spent 5,000 hours weaving this thing.
And I could not be less impressed. I'm just whatever. I'm going to spill salsa on this thing in a week. Why did we even buy
Make sure there's some red in it.
So ridiculous. All right, so the other pick I want to bring up here, or at least the first pick I want to bring up in the fourth round, Dave, Darren Waller at the 404. He normally goes at the 505 in this format. I don't know if the fantasy hive mind is making a mistake by letting Waller slip, given that the Raiders attacked the pass-catching position in the draft. They still have Tyrell Williams here. Darren Waller at the 404. If you like him, that's great. Take him there. I can't get on board with that, though, for Brad Evans there.
Yeah, personally for me, I would have come with a different position and probably let Waller most likely would not have gotten back to me. I do like him, actually. But I would have there's other players. Like, I thought David Johnson was a really fine pick. Cooper Kupp was a nice pick. Thielen's a good pick. A lot of the picks after him I thought were decent, too. I mean, if you like Chris Carson, too, that's another option.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do like the fifth-round pick for Brad Evans, too. We'll get to that in a little bit. I think, did we talk about Raheem Mostert agreeing to that deal? Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. So he's basically locked in as at least 1A on that 49ers rush offense.
He got the respect finally. He's at least making more than his backup, or at least about the same as his backup.
God, I didn't even think of that Tevin Coleman was making more money than Raheem Mostert.
That was like the whole principle of the whole thing.
Yeah. It's like, how could I go out there and perform when my understudy is making more money than me?
Tevin Coleman, he sucks.
Right, exactly. All right, so fifth round here. Terry McLaurin to Jared Smola. That's his second receiver off the board, followed by DJ Chark to Kevin Proctor. That is his third receiver. He's got 2 backs and 3 receivers so far as team construction goes. Cam Akers off the board as the number 2 running back to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland. And that starts off a bit of a running back run here in the fifth round, Dave. You have Mark Ingram to Eric Rubin, David Montgomery to David Dodds, Devin Singletary to Davidson and Rodder, and then Kareem Hunt off the board as the fourth running back to Rich Rebar. Boy, that is going to be an interesting squad to follow for the remainder of the 13 rounds here. I can't wait to see the receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks that he cobbles together there. Glenn Lowy takes DK Metcalf as his third wideout. Boy, that's good value for Metcalf. Cortland Sutton, I already said I like that pick, to Brad Evans at the 509, followed by T.Y. Hilton to Matthew Jacobson. Evan Engram, almost 2 full rounds after Darren Waller goes. Evan Engram is the 6th tight end chosen, and then Tyler Lockett to Scott Colby. I think no matter what happens this offseason, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, in the majority of the drafts, Dave, they're just destined to be taken in the same round.
Yeah, they're always really close to each other. I think they both went kind of late this time, right?
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Late fourth round.
That's what I wanted to look up here. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett normally going at the 507 and 508.
Oh, so this is okay. So yesterday it was actually early.
Yesterday was early. Tonight it's more on brand here. The other thing that I think that Metcalf and Lockett share in common with what I've seen in drafts in the past, when you have these, I think it's safe to say Metcalf is the one, but when you have guys close like this, you hear a lot of analysts talk about just take the next guy. Let somebody else take the first guy, and then you take the guy who's left. And I feel like that's true again with Seattle. You're going to see a lot of people doing that. Well, Metcalf's gone. I guess I got to take Lockett. I don't think Lockett will go ahead of Metcalf in a lot of drafts this year, but I bet it will happen here and there, and that's what we have. I like Cortland Sutton at the 509. I know you're not a huge fan of that one. Dave, what do you make of Rich Rebar here? 4 running backs in the first 5 rounds. With
how dare he?
Dalvin Cook.
I mean, what the hell is going on?
My kids say that all the time. It is.
Do they really?
Oh, how dare you? They say that.
How dare you?
How dare you?
To whom? To you?
To me, to their friends, to their mother.
Disrespectful.
Totally. And I scold them for it every
honor
time.
Your father and mother is like one of the commandments.
That's what I need to do. I need to bring God into this. And
bust out the Bible.
More importantly than God, the fear of God into them. And that's what I'm going to start doing.
Get your preacher to talk to him.
Right. Exactly. Like preacher.
I like preacher better than pastor.
You have Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Kareem Hunt. Now, let me ask you this. Would you stop at running back now in a slim format? Would you completely stop at running back after those first 4?
I would probably take a look at I don't want to say the player's name. There's a player I would look at, and then maybe take a stab at somebody. Maybe I would look at one more running back, one handcuff possibility, and then and then that's it. That would be fine.
Okay.
Or just one other stab at running back in like the 10th to 14th.
So not necessarily a handcuff.
Correct. I would just go with like 5 backs. But
I
mean, his backs are fantastic. And look at him. Well, I don't want to get too much into the team, but Thielen and Keenan Allen, nothing wrong with that.
You know, Chris Birchby was drafting, I feel like, from the 9 spot last night, and he didn't have this exact approach, but I remember him taking a tight end early, and he had some running backs early. I don't think he had a quarterback. I'd have to look at the draft board. But he also, I think he ended up with his top 2 receivers were Keenan Allen and a guy who hasn't been chosen yet. We were kind of like, that will probably work. Right? And then he cobbled.
I know who that player is.
Like 4 or 5. Might have been 5 or 6 receivers after that too.
Yeah, so upside guys, those guys, whatever.
And he only went with his only 2 tight ends were Travis Kelce and Tyler Higbee. And I think this is we'll get to the 6th round in a second here. I think this is the latest we've seen Higbee go in the pros shows so far this season. But it was one of those drafts where it wasn't like a chalk. Oh, this is how a high stakes guy would do it. But you look at the draft and you're like, I could totally see a high stakes, an accomplished, experienced high stakes drafter attacking this best ball slim the way that Chris Birchby did. And I think he turned out with a pretty good team. Yeah,
effectively you can tell the story behind the way the team was crafted, right? And I think that's what he did, and I think you can do that probably with Rich here. We'll see how it turns out. We'll see.
The 601 is Damian Williams to Scott Colby, as he has alternated wide receivers and running backs with each of his first 6 picks so far. Will Fuller, the 3rd receiver drafted by Josh Hornsby, and then DeAndre Swift is the 3rd running back selected by Matthew Jacobson. He going at the 603 tonight. Bit of a mini receiver run here. Devontae Parker to Brad Evans. Marquise Brown to Glenn Lowy. Keenan Allen off the board to Rich Rebar. And then A.J. Green to Mark Davidson. Boy, DeAndre Hopkins and A.J. Green 2 years ago, Dave. What a pairing it would be.
Ronald Todd Gurley, David Johnson.
Yes, exactly. Well, even Travis Kelce to a certain extent, too.
Yeah, well, he's been good forever.
Ronald Jones is the 3rd running back drafted by David Dodds. Back-to-back tight ends we have here with your guy, Hunter Henry to Eric Rubin. That's his starting tight end. And then the aforementioned Tyler Higbee off the board to Drake and McFarland here at the 6'10". Higbee backing up Mark Andrews as he is the 2nd tight end drafted by them. Darius Geist to Kevin Proctor. And then Tyler Boyd creeping up a little bit at the 6'12 tonight.
Boyd going to the number 1 team.
To Jared Smola.
2 nights in a row.
Oh, is that what happened last night?
Yeah, Hubbard took him, I think, at the 701, if I recall.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he did. And A.J. Green, once again, goes ahead of Tyler Boyd. Do you expect that when we get to the heavy main event drafts in late August, early September, do you expect that A.J. Green will still be going ahead of Tyler Boyd?
I do. And I also expect that I would still prefer Boyd.
Boyd, yeah. Do you think A.J. Green is more of like you're trying to win a $500,000 grand prize, you see how much he's slipping? Let me bring this up, and this is something Sigmund Bloom, who actually drafted on Sunday night here in this contest, has talked about. A.J. Green, his ADP is roughly, it's not the exact same, it's roughly the same right now as it was last year when you knew that A.J. Green was coming into the season hurt.
Sure.
Okay? Do you view... It's different now because while he's coming into the season healthy, Dave, he's also a year older, and he also missed the entire last season. This is something that he did not experience coming into the 2019 season. So you look at A.J. Green, and people see him sitting there, again, in a slim format. They see him sitting there in the 7th round, which is normally where he goes. He and Boyd were both reached for a little bit tonight, according to ADP at least. Do you view him as people see him, oh, my goodness, A.J. Green's out there. I know I got 3 receivers already, but if I can have A.J. Green as my 4th receiver, I could really get some differentiation and win this whole thing with A.J. Green as my number 4.
You know, the way I just look at it is he's turning 32 at the end of July. Actually, his birthday, we should wish him a happy birthday. July 31st is his birthday.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
He turned 32. You know, he hasn't – okay, 2014 he played 13 games.
Right.
2015 he played 16 games. 2016 he played 10. 2017 he played 16. And 2018 he played 9. So, I mean, how many games is he going to play? I mean, the guy gets hurt all the time. I don't have any faith whatsoever in an aging A.J. Green to be productive, and he very well could be. I mean, maybe he doesn't have a great season. And in fact, there's probably a 70% chance that he has a fine season. But there's a 30% chance in that, or whatever percent you want to put on it, that either he craps out, busts, gets hurt, whatever. I mean, whatever issues he has issues, and he's getting older and older. And you see the career arc of players, and his career arc is definitely on the downside. There's no reason for me not to take Tyler Boyd, a totally competent player who's on the upside, had a high phenom score.
Who Cincinnati paid, by the way.
Yeah, and they paid him. Yeah, exactly. They did. They had a choice to pay A.J. Green or Tyler Boyd, and they chose Boyd. Mm-hmm. So why would I? No, granted, Cincinnati.
It's the Bengals. Yep, I knew that was coming up next.
But nevertheless, I mean, they're making decisions based on what they know. Why would they not make the decision that's best for their squad? Granted, you want to lock up the younger guy, but I'm going with the younger guy. I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd.
You can't.
And Tyler Boyd won me leagues last year. He had 2 touchdowns in week 15 or 16, whatever it was.
I bring this up, too. When I took over a dynasty team a couple of years ago, there was a dispersal draft, and, both teams were not great. But I ended up it was my pick, and I'm like, well, Tyler Boyd's out there, I guess. And he hadn't done anything yet in his career. I'm like, I guess I'll just take this guy, see what happens. I probably just could have cut him or traded him for like a second-round or a third-round pick. Probably not even a second-round pick.
Probably a third at that time.
Right, a third, yeah. And I was like, I'll see what happens. And he looked really good. You cannot predict injuries, obviously, although injury predictor might have – they might say that you can.
Yes, we can.
But what you can't – how does injury predictor use what tools they use to predict injuries? Players of the same ilk, players of the same age, players with previous injuries. So while you can't say, okay, this guy's going to tear an ACL this year, you can say, there are players with higher probability to re-injure things and get hurt again, given their age, given their previous injury history. And I think you could make the case with that A.J. Green falls into that category as well. That said, when you're trying to beat out 11 teams and you get nothing for second place, remember all these teams are gunning for a 2021 FFPC main event title, entry to Mark Davidson and Jacob Proctor. When you already have those running backs, when you already have Kelsey and you already have Hopkins, maybe you can live with A.J. Green as your number 2 receiver there and see what happens. Might be a good pick to win guy for this particular format. Moving on to the 7th round, J.K. Dobbins off the board to Jared Smola. That is his number 3 running back at the 701. We have a Dak Prescott sandwich in between 2 lovely pieces of tight end bread. Noah Fant to
what
Kevin.
What the hell is that?
Yep, Noah Fant. I got to do 6 of these. I got to come up with different euphemisms and ways to describe this.
That's fine.
Noah Fant to Kevin Proctor here, the tight end. Then you have Dak Prescott off the board to Drake and McFarland as their starting quarterback. And then Hayden Hurst, Jungle Cats, at Jungle Cats FF, Eric Rubin on Twitter.
H.
Yep, they have 4 H's among their 2 T's, which is interesting there. They get the I don't want to say law firm. It's like more of a
Henry and Hurst
trust fund type, like frat boys.
Yeah, exactly. Like a stock trading, like a hedge fund.
Yep, right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, who'd you see about that? Henry and Hurst.
Yeah, I got Henry and Hurst. It's the typical 2 and 20 deal
where
they take 2% and 20% of profits.
Oh, did you see what happened with those 2 girls? Oh, who brought them home? Hunter and Henry, of course. It does seem like... Or Hunter and Hayden, of course.
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching the Skulls 3 or whatever.
Oh, you know what's funny? I watched the Skulls the other night.
Me too.
It was on HBO. I'm like, God, why am I watching this?
I felt the same way because, whatever... you have Caleb Mandrake and
Paul Walker, yeah. The late Paul Walker played.
He plays such a douchebag, which is great.
Oh yeah.
And then the main.
Speaking of easily manipulated, by the way.
Who's the main character again?
Joshua Jackson.
Yeah, and
Casey Witter
from
Dawson's
movie
Creek
that he did or whatever.
No, he's actually had a pretty interesting career. For
whatever. Sorry to interrupt. For some reason I just don't care for him. So
no, that's fine. I get it. He's a hockey guy. He's a Canadian guy. He was actually in Mighty Ducks, all 3 Mighty Ducks movies. But he's gotten into some drunken scrapes at hockey games in Canada in real life.
To be honest, I bet you I would love him in real life.
I'd love to hang out with him.
Yeah, have a couple drinks.
Do you ever watch The Affair on Showtime?
No, I don't.
It's critically acclaimed, whatever. He's on that show.
Oh, okay.
He's been on that show for a while.
I'm glad his career is working out for him.
He's been in a few movies, so he isn't completely fallen off.
Maybe I just didn't like him in the Skulls for whatever reason.
He has the Okay, so the dude from Saturday Night Live, Colin Jost, he's the head writer. He's on Weekend Update. He just released a memoir called A Very Punchable Face, and it's his face on the cover. Okay, and he does have a very punchable.
Jackson has a punchable.
Has a very punchable face. I think that's what it is, and maybe that's why he gets in all these drunken scrapes because everybody's like, I just want to punch this guy.
Well, the other thing, too, is he's supposed to be this collegiate – we'll get back to the show in a minute. He's supposed to be this collegiate rower, right? And his face is like –
oh, my gosh, yeah.
He's like a big, mushy face.
Yeah.
And like he has no muscle definition whatsoever. I'm like, dude.
He looks like a college, like a gamer. Like,
yeah, exactly.
This guy just plays Madden
did you see
for a
the
living.
Social Network, the Winklevi,
yeah.
the Winklevoss twins? No, those guys look like freaking rowers. He doesn't look at all like a rower. So anyway,
Dudu played the Winklevoss twins, Army Hammer. He and his wife just separated. Very, very sad.
How unfortunate.
Yeah. All right, so moving on.
By the way, the real Winklevoss twins are crushing it.
What did they do? They did something big
in the Bitcoin.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, they made a ton of money in Bitcoin. Anyway, back to the draft.
Stephon Diggs to David Dodds as his number 3 receiver. Jarvis Landry and Michael Gallup right after that. Landry to Davidson and Rodder. Michael Gallup is the 3rd receiver drafted by Rich Rebar here at the 707. Mike Gesicki, first tight end for Glenn Lowy here. Glenn Lowy takes his first tight end at the 708. And then we get a little quarterback run here. Kyler Murray to Brad Evans, Deshaun Watson to Matthew Jacobson. T.J. Hawkinson will be the backup tight end to Evan Engram for Josh Hornsby as he takes him at the 7-11. And then Russell Wilson at the 7-12 tonight to Scott Colby.
That finishes off those top 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We've seen every time. Now it's going to be there's going to be a big gap, a couple rounds.
So just to comment on the quarterbacks here just real quick. Normally we see the big gap after Jackson Mahomes, but it was Murray the last couple of nights. Tonight, it was Prescott first. And I also feel like there is a little bit of a gap after Murray goes before Prescott, Watson, and Wilson goes. Murray gets lumped in there tonight.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just
variance. There's nothing to.
Yeah, personal preference. I mean, I can see the argument for anyone taking. You have Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, definitely the first tier. But that second tier, I could see the argument for taking Prescott, Murray, Watson, or Wilson, all 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. I could totally see it. In fact, when you look at the receivers, when you talk about the receiver quality, I think you could argue that Watson has by far the worst. I mean, by comparison, you have Will Fuller, Cooks, and no tight end effectively.
Yeah.
Wilson. We all know the players that these guys have, and that's just.
Yeah, I think by far is safe. I mean, he's clearly the worst, and the question is it by far? And I think it is.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. I guess.
No, I think it is by far.
Murray
I think you're right.
Have Hopkins, old Fitz, and a bunch
Christian
of young guys, and Kirk. Yeah.
Kirk was pretty good last season.
Yeah, he's solid.
I was listening to the Football Guys podcast again, which by the way, David Dodds drafting in this contest, co-founder of that website. Not sure if he's gotten back to Dave's message.
No, he hasn't even responded.
Yeah. Well, he is drafting tonight. Did you see what David Dodd said about the draft tonight, by the way, on Twitter?
No, I don't go on the Twitter.
Okay, I'm going to bring it up right now and read this, and then I have another story to tell you about the Arizona receivers.
This is great, whatever. Take your time.
Okay, so David Dodds, who you can follow on Twitter at FBG_Dodds, he was so Javier from Terre Haute, who apparently just communicates with Darren Armani now. Doesn't communicate with us anymore.
He supposedly has odds of this.
He sets the odds. He set the odds for the Pros vs. Joes the last 3 years.
Scott Colby was mad because he was 14-1 or something.
Was he really?
Well, he wasn't mad. He pointed out in the FFPC draft or the lobby, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking
about. Javier from Terre Haute, which nobody knows what he looks like, but Darren always chooses to use the picture of Tattoo from Fantasy Island, which they just made a movie about. That actor who played him. On HBO, Peter Dinklage played him in it was like an autobiography, not an autobiography, biopic, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
I think
is that a major in college now? Biopic?
No. Anyway, so Dodds comes out at 10-1 tonight to win this league, right? And he chimes in on Twitter.
That's better than 12-1.
The fact that my odds haven't moved higher is a testament to how secure my operation is. As my bank of 15 computers cools and the 10 millionth sim completes, I think I will just enjoy some music to clear my head before my inevitable victory.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good tweet there. Remember, David Dodds is a rocket scientist, so we're laughing at that. It probably is all real. Let's talk about Noah Fant here, Dave, before we move on to the 8th round. He normally goes at the 8-12 in the slim format, 702 tonight to Kevin Proctor. How many of the tight ends that went after him would you have rather had over Fant? Let's play Would You Rather. Noah Fant or Hayden Hurst?
Hurst.
Noah Fant or Mike Gesicki?
Gesicki.
I agree on both of those, by the way. Noah Fant or T.J. Hawkinson?
You know what? I'm actually
No, you're not.
I've crapped on Hawkinson before, but he has Stafford thrown to him. I'll take Hawkinson.
I would take Fant. Noah Fant or Austin Hooper?
Hooper.
Yeah, I heard you. I'm thinking. Yeah, I guess I will lean towards...
Take Fant.
No, I'm going to take Fant.
Go ahead.
Noah Fant or Jared Cook?
Cook for sure.
I agree. Noah Fant or Rob Gronkowski?
Getting closer, but I'll take Gronk.
I think I would take Gronk there, too. Noah Fant or Chris Herndon?
Fant.
I agree. All right, so we're fairly on the same page there. Let's get to the 8th round here.
Kind of our point, though, is that he could have let Fant go and possibly...
Maybe.
No, he could have... What's his ADP?
8-12.
So he could have let Fant go, and you cannot disagree with this argument. There was a 50-50 shot at worst of him getting him at the 8-11. That's right, math.
I don't know.
Thank you. That's math.
Yeah. I went to parochial school. I'm not a good math student. Okay, so moving on here to the 801. Austin Hooper to Scott Colby, and then 3 straight running backs. You get James White to Josh Hornsby, Darrell Henderson to Matthew Jacobson, Keshawn Vaughn to Brad Evans as his number 3 running back. Brandon Cooks, was that the receiver you were thinking of before that Chris Birchby took?
That is correct.
Okay,
Brandon Cooks,
that's what I was thinking of as well. Brandon Cooks goes to Glenn Lowy tonight. Another accomplished high-stakes guy taking Brandon Cooks. Interesting.
Sleeper.
Deontay Johnson to Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis as his number 4 receiver. Jared Cook to Mark Davidson and Jacob Rodder, which, by the way, I know we're only halfway through, but Hribar has not taken another running back yet.
Smart.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. All right, so Jared Cook and Rob Gronkowski after that. Tariq Cohen to Eric Rubin as his number 4 running back. Julian Edelman will be the number 3 pass catcher for Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland. Chris Herndon off the board at the 8-11, and then Marvin Jones at the 8-12 tonight to Jared Smola. Marvin Jones, the guy that you love that I would like to like, just have not been able to find it in my system.
I don't know if I would say I love him, but I like him.
All right, so you like him, and I wish I did.
I can even maybe like him.
Darrell Henderson, 803. Dave, to me, that seems a little early. I'm going to look it up right now for this format. Normally goes at the 11:01. Matthew Jacobson
yeah, it's a little early.
He does not have Cam Akers. Maybe this is just a case of he just doesn't like Cam Akers and believes Henderson is going to be the guy. You see Henderson crawling up draft boards as we get closer to main event season? I don't know if I see that.
No, I don't. I think he'll kind of stay where he's at. In fact, with no preseason, I see no reason for him to be moving much at all.
All right, so just to talk about Hribar's receivers here a little bit, we already talked about Thielen and Allen. He gets Gallup and Deontay Johnson, 2 guys that are getting some hype, but they're both number 2 receivers on their own teams. Is that a deterrent for you to take them where he did in the 7th and 8th? Would you be staying away, knowing that Gallup's not going to get the number 1 touches, knowing that Deontay Johnson's going to be playing second fiddle to Juju Smith-Schuster? Although there's some people out there that believe Johnson will leapfrog Smith-Schuster this year.
You know, it's interesting that you mention all those things. I'd be on board with Gallup, but for some reason, I'm not feeling Deontay Johnson. He's a second-year player. He didn't really, to me, he didn't prove himself at all really as a rookie. So I don't really get the hype. I don't get the love. He's not like a superb athlete or anything.
No,
he's not. Like DK Metcalf. Granted, he had terrible agility drills, but the guy ran like a 4.3 at his size is crazy. Deontay Johnson, he's just kind of an average athlete, so he's got to be really good in a lot of different ways. I'm just not a big believer in him. That's just my personal take.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on to the 9th round then, Dave. Jonnu Smith and Blake Jarwin, a pair of tight ends, kick things off. Smith to Smola, Jarwin to Proctor, Jordan Howard, the starting running back for Miami, to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland, Christian Kirk to Eric Rubin. That's his number 2 receiver. I think we're going to be talking about that coming up. Dallas Goedert is the number 2 tight end drafted by David Dodds, and then you have Philip Lindsay going to Davidson and Rodder there at the 906 tonight. That is their number 4 running back. Rich Hribar now has a starting quarterback. His name is Matt Ryan, and he plays for the Atlanta Falcons. He goes at the 907. Tevin Coleman and Marlon Mack go back-to-back. Glenn Lowy takes Coleman. Brad Evans takes Mack. Jerry Jeudy to Matthew Jacobson here at the 9-10. And then Matt Breida off the board as the number 4 running back drafted by Josh Hornsby at Fantasy ADHD on Twitter. Hornsby takes Breida as the penultimate pick in the 9th round. And then Josh Allen goes to Scott Colby. This is interesting too, Dave.
All right.
Because we have 7 teams with quarterbacks, but Kobe is the first one to back up his quarterback. Russell Wilson and Josh Allen. That's a 1-2 punch. I'd probably be staying away from the position the rest of the way. How do you think this is going to affect the teams going forward in the 10th round on that do not have quarterbacks?
Actually, I honestly think they're not going to pay attention to it. I think they're going to ignore that, and they're still going to wait.
I think 11th round. That's where we're going to see it tonight.
Yeah, there's going to be a run, but it's not going to be now.
What did you say it was going to be last night? Did you say it was going to be 11th round last night?
To be honest, you have to roll back the tape.
Yeah, we don't have time to do that right now. But
I was wrong. Whatever it was, I was wrong though by about 2 rounds. I think
it
was
2 rounds.
11th.
You either said it was 11th or the 13th.
I think I said 11th. I think it was the 13th.
Okay, all right. So fair enough. Well, we'll see what happens tonight regarding that. But this is an interesting 9th round. Your favorite tight end, clearly in the 9th round, Dave, was Dallas Goedert over Jarwin and Jonnu Smith.
Yes, for me, yes, for sure. I love Goddard.
All right, so in this format, and by the way, if you're not familiar with the FFPC format, it is a start, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex in the slim format.
The general format.
You only have to start 2 receivers. That said, Dave, if you were Eric Rubin, would you have waited until the 904 to draft your second receiver? I mean, he loaded up he's got 4 running backs. He's got Lamar Jackson. He's got a pair of tight ends, but it came at the expense of having Christian Kirk as your number 2 receiver.
Yeah, I would have gone differently a little bit. Maybe instead of taking Ingram, I would have taken a receiver, or for sure, instead of taking Cohen, I would have taken Edelman probably in the 8th round. But Marvin Jones also would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're in, and
it's kind of Cohen was kind of a luxury a little bit, and there's no reason that even if you like him, I don't know what's the point.
You don't like Cohen this year, do you?
I don't really like him in general. I mean, whatever.
I'm starting to like him more again. He's getting that preseason hype, like catching passes. Montgomery sucks. Cohen is, the Bears' offense would have been better if they would have gotten Cohen involved more last year. I don't know.
Speaking of the Bears, and Twitter, did you hear there was a rumor that Nick Foles was going to sit out the season? That was then quickly debunked by someone,
by Nick Foles.
No, it's funny. It was like a marginal person on Twitter. Let's say, I don't know.
Eric Balkman.
Yeah, Eric Balkman goes, oh yeah, my sources tell me that Nick Foles is sitting out due to COVID. Yeah. And then you get someone a level below Adam Schefter. I don't remember who it was, but like a legitimate blue checkmark person. The rumors are incorrect. Nick Foles is playing, da-da-da-da. So it's kind of put that guy in his place.
I was,
something Wallace was the one who set out the original rumor.
Yeah, I don't know. Bubba Wallace, the NASCAR driver?
Yeah, might have been.
Do you like how we incorporated NASCAR into Pros vs. Joe's #1 with Scott Engel, the King? Because he writes about NASCAR.
Yeah, I thought that was a kind of interesting little mini conversation you guys had together. I had no idea what you were talking about.
I think
what about this guy, man? He really needs to Kenny Hamlin or Bob Hamlin or Jimmy Hamlin or whatever.
Denny Hamlin.
Whatever the hell is Hamlin.
Yeah.
Hemi Hamlin, Hunter Hamlin, Hayden Hamlin.
Hunter Hamlin, the rookie tight end for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, he's got to win the Cup some year. I mean, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. That's all. You retained a lot of information from the conversation that you weren't a part of.
Except for the first name.
I have to prep for my NASCAR interview tomorrow, so I'm dialed. I'm in the NASCAR.
Is Hamlin coming on?
No, but one of his buddies is coming on my show.
Really?
So, well, he's from the Motor Racing Network. His name is Alex Hayden. He comes on our show every Wednesday, but he's on.
Is he a hillbilly?
He's good buddies with Alex or with Denny Hamlin. No, he's not a hillbilly.
Good.
All right, so Shane Hallam's got breaking news in the BTR chat room.
Hey, Devin, who punches?
Well, no. I want to talk about that in a second here, though. Shane says, my sources tell me Eric Balkman is going to sit out the HSFF Hour season. And I got news for you. If you've ever listened to the HSFF Hour, I've been sitting out that season for years.
You know what's really funny, actually, is our formerly known as the Verizon Studios. Mm-hmm. We've been social distancing for years. We
really have, yeah.
How far away are we? About 8 feet?
We're 7, I would say.
7 feet.
Let's seem accurate.
All right.
Could you fit a Giannis Antetokounmpo between us right now?
I'm not sure.
So what was I talking about now? With I remember
Denny Hamlin.
No, I had something. No, after NASCAR, it's something I was going to bring. Oh, Devin Funchess.
Reggie Hammond is Eddie Murphy's character in 48 Hours.
There you go.
Anyway, go ahead.
What a racist name. to give Eddie Murphy for that movie. Like, what are we gonna call his character? How about Reggie Hammond?
I suppose in this day and age,
right.
that would be instantly banned.
That's how I think about things now. So Devin Funchess. So you saw a lot of the players, opting out of the season or whatever, and I'm just curious to your thoughts on it. I think they have until Saturday to announce whether they're going to opt out. You think we're going to see any big names on that list just from a fantasy perspective? Because I'm not sure we will.
It wouldn't surprise me to see one or two. I mean, it's so. I mean, who knows? It's so tough to predict. I just can't. I can't predict.
I don't know. I'm
glad so far it's been Marquise Goodwin, who's garbage, and then Devin Funchess, right? As from wide receiver.
Who's the other one? There's one other Brandon Bolden. Which by the way, I can't remember who said it. It's like, I guess we won't get that 3-touchdown outlier this season.
Yeah, right. Yeah, week 14. Damn it.
Yeah,
we missed it.
I feel like in football, for fantasy, say what you will, but fantasy has such an impact on the NFL players, the skill position guys, and it's such a numbers driven thing with contracts. It's hard for me to believe that somebody, unless they've already made their millions and are are just clinging on, which I don't even know how many of those players are out there like that, unless you're a quarterback.
Can I give you my little point?
Well, I'll just say this. It's tough for me to see a player like that who stands to make so much money from a big statistical season sit out.
So let's look at I'm going to leave. Let's lump tight end in with wide receiver, right? When you're playing football and you're a wide receiver or a tight end, you're not really all that close to other players all that much. You get tackled here and there, right? So that's fine. I feel like the receivers are a little bit of a low risk position. Running back is not low risk necessarily, but it's a short shelf life career. So you can't miss a year. I mean, can you miss a year? If you're Derrick Henry, can you miss a year?
No.
And quarterbacks, I mean, they have different colored jerseys on, so they don't get hit.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. You get the quarterbacks are protected. So I feel like the positions kind of lend themselves to playing. That's my point.
Yeah. No, I get that. Some thoughts from the BTR chat room here as we'll get back to the live draft shortly. Shane Hallam says they have longer to opt out. The date is not set. It actually depends on the NFLPA and NFL's final qualification for it. Henry Muto saying they have until at least Monday, maybe at least Tuesday. Shane's saying it's at least going to be a week from now. And as we talk about the fantasy aspect, you remember the New England defense, Dave, everybody is falling all over themselves. Was it last year or 2 years ago? And analysts were going insane about this. Respected analysts saying, like, they would trade Odell Beckham straight up for the New England defense. And I was just like, you guys, just get grounded here. This is crazy talk. Unless you're playing in a league where you start like one receiver and defenses create like Balkman League points or something like that.
I was just going to say that.
So that's what we're looking at here. Let's get back to the draft because we're falling behind here. Where do we leave off? Josh Allen. Okay. 10:01, Anthony Miller, Deebo Samuel to Josh Hornsby, Justin Jefferson and Jamison Crowder after that to Jacobson and Evans, respectively. Zach Moss over to Glenn Lowy, followed by Mecole Hardman to Rich Rebar. Still hasn't drafted a running back since Kareem Hunt. Emmanuel Sanders to Davidson and Rodder. Latavius Murray to David Dodds as his number 4 running back. Darius Slayton to Eric Rubin, CeeDee Lamb to Drake and McFarland, Alexander Madison to Kevin Proctor, and then Carson Wentz wraps up the 10th round here to Jared Small. I want to motor on into the 11th round, Dave. Kerryon Johnson at the 11:01, Daniel Jones to Kevin Proctor at the 11:02, and there was a question from the chat from Shane P. Hallam. Do you guys buy Daniel Jones this season? New coaching staff, not the best passer, will need his legs. I am a bit meh. Dave, are you a bit meh on Daniel Jones?
It would be really tough for me to pass on Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers for Daniel Jones. So I'd probably, yeah.
He's got those legs, though.
Yes, he does have 2 legs.
And he uses them.
He does use them.
Rodgers and Brees, they just need to have their legs not be broken. Daniel Jones
Rodgers rushes once in a while.
Once in a while he does.
Well, yeah, I hear you. I get it.
It's interesting because if you look at the FFPC Best Ball Slim ADP among the quarterbacks right now, Daniel Jones is being drafted as quarterback 13 at the 10:08 on average, Dave. And you know who he's right between? The 2 quarterbacks you just brought up. Brees goes right in front of him. Rodgers goes right behind him with about a half round separating them. I get it that you want to go with the up-and-comer, but, for me, a notorious bag holder in dynasty drafts, I'm probably leaning towards Brees and Rodgers as well there, knowing what those guys are capable of, knowing what they've already done, and still Daniel Jones, he is a bit of a wild card, a bit of a mystery box.
He does not have enough of a history in the NFL. I mean, he could be fantastic, but you have sophomore slumps. It really happens all the time.
I also question the weapons. Barkley's obviously awesome. There's no question about that. Ingram, I don't know. He's been dinged up. He's been okay when he's been in there.
An injury.
And then you look at the receivers: Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. I mean, who's the number one there? All of them? None of them? I don't know.
Golden Tate.
You think he is?
I don't know.
Because he's the last one drafted among FFPC
I'm just kidding, but he could be. I mean, even though he's just a slot.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Mark Davidson's picking right now. I would actually whatever. Go ahead.
Hold on. Let me see if I can guess who it is.
Well, we just talked about the two.
Got it. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones to Kevin Proctor at the 11th.
Stafford's
that's not bad. Jalen Reagor to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland at the 11:03. Preston Williams to Jungle Cats. That's Eric Rubin at 11:04. Sterling Shepard to David Dodds, followed by Drew Brees to Davidson and Rodder. Pair of tight ends here. Jack Doyle is the starting tight end for Rich Rebar. Ian Thomas is the backup tight end for Glenn Lowy. He already took Mike Gesicki in the 7th. Tony Pollard, a.k.a. Pollard, goes to Brad Evans here in the 11th. Boy, that's a nice value if I do say so myself. I'll have to verify that shortly. Boston Scott right after that, another nice value in my opinion, to Matthew Jacobson. And then Baker Mayfield and John Brown round up round 11. All right, so let's look at the Pollard ADP right away, Dave. Maybe I'm off on this, but he normally goes at the 10-12, so it's a little bit of a value, not a ton. You're looking at 2/3 of a round, whatever. So we talked about – go ahead.
Your point last night about how a lot of running back people who have not drafted handcuffs is playing.
I was going to bring this up before too. Yeah,
playing out again tonight. I mean, really, you're not seeing handcuffs being taken. You're seeing actually the old switcheroo, and people are just taking other people's handcuffs. Yeah. And it's fine. I mean, it's just the way it's working out.
Do you think that continues in high stakes drafts? And which, by the way, if you want to. If this is the first FFPC draft you're ever seeing, with the tight end premium format, the flex, we have a ton of options for you at myffpc.com. You can draft in this actual best ball slim format. We have classic best ball formats on that website. The Terminator satellites, the Terminator Contest, which gets underway in about 4 days here, where you have to cut one player off your team every single week until you're left with a starting lineup in week 16, $25,000 grand prize, and that'll be fun. Also, the Football Guys Players Championship, those drafts have been filling up fast. $500,000 grand prize, only a $350 entry. And then, of course, the main event, which you have about 4 hours to sign up for right now to make sure that you get your early draft slot by August 2nd. You'll know where you're drafting for the FFPC main event. $500,000 grand prize there, too. So check all those out at myffpc.com, and hopefully you can use what we're saying to your advantage or go against it and win a lot of money. It's all up to you at myffpc.com. Go ahead, Dave. You look a little confused.
No, I don't want to say. I'll talk about what I'm going to talk about in a bit.
All right, that sounds good. I want to talk
about an undrafted player. I'm not quite understanding, but we'll see what happens.
All right. This is which, by the way, shout out to Shane Hallam. It's his first main event this year. FFPC main event. No, I never played the main.
Oh, well.
Be his maiden voyage.
Welcome.
Look forward to having him on in about 4 months when he wins the $500K.
That would actually be pretty funny.
That'd be great. Moving on to the 12th round here. Josh Kelly is the first selection there to Scott Kobe as he grabs. I was just going to say, well, now he handcuffed Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's not on the Chargers anymore, so it's not a handcuff there. Josh Kelly at the 12:01. Cam Newton, back-to-back quarterbacks drafted by Josh Hornsby. He gets Mayfield and Newton in the 11th and 12th. Jay Sternberger off the board to Matthew Jacobson as his backup tight end to George Kittle. Naheem Hines off the board to Brad Evans right after that at the 12:04. Tom Brady starting for the Buccaneers, starting for Glenn Lowy tonight in the 12th round. Eric Ebron backing up Jack Doyle for Rich Rebar's tight ends. tonight from Sharp Football Analysis. Matthew Stafford, as you teased earlier, Mark Davidson and Jacob Rodder take him as their second quarterback. Jared Goff right off the board after that, backing up Patrick Mahomes for David Dodds. Maybe Jared Goff will end up backing up Patrick Mahomes in real life, too, someday, Dave. I wouldn't put it past anyone.
Yeah, it's possible.
N'Keal Harry to Eric Rubin as his fourth straight wide receiver drafted. We talked about this earlier. How was he going to cobble the receivers together when he waited until the 9th round to draft his number 2? Well, he's pounded a ton of them. We'll give our thoughts on that coming up later. Chase Edmonds to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland. And then you have Antonio Gibson to Kevin Proctor and Mike Williams wrapping up the 12th round. He going to Jared Smola from DraftSharks.com as his number 5 receiver. We talked about what round the quarterbacks are going to go tonight, Dave. It was sort of a combination between the 11th and 12th, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you could Carson Wentz was the final pick of the 10th. So really you had, in a span of, 24 picks, you had 8 quarterbacks go off the board there. Now I believe everyone has a starter. Yeah, everyone has at least one.
Everyone has at least one, and it's pretty it just shows the depth of quarterback. It really is super deep. I mean, there's some really quality players that are still being ignored, and it's amazing.
One quality player in particular?
There's a quality player that's being ignored. This is the type of situation where if I'm picking 11th, I'm taking my third quarterback. If I'm picking 12th, I'm taking my third quarterback, and I'm popping it out.
I can't wait till he gets drafted because I get a great story to tell about him. He did an interview today, and I want to talk about that.
I mean, it's just I can't possibly see. I don't know. I don't understand why that one player would impact this other player's draft position due to making a certain decision. I mean, but I guess it's possible. I
like what Evans did in the 11th and 12th here as far as running backs go. Now, he already had Derrick Henry. He already had Leonard Fournette, that he grabbed early. He gets Keyshawn Vaughn and Marlon Mack. Keyshawn Vaughn, I guess, is very on brand. I should pay more attention to Brad Evans, and I try to, but I can't keep up on everyone. But I guess it's very on brand for him, Keyshawn Vaughn to Evans there, according to Shane P. Hallam. The 11th and 12th picks, man, Pollard and Hines, I like those picks for a running back core to sort of round that out. He's probably good on running back now the rest of the way. He won't have to concentrate on that, but yeah, I like what he did back-to-back there.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's going to be a little weak at tight end 2 and receiver due to that. But, yeah, it did work out that way.
All right, moving on to round 13. Deshaun Jackson is going to be going off the board here at the 13:01. That is the number 6 receiver drafted by Jared Smola from Draft Sharks. Golden Tate right off the board after that to Kevin Proctor. Sony Michel, bit of a plunge here. Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland from Pro Football Focus there. They take Michel at the 13:01. Dave, at what point would you get on board with Sony Michel, given that we heard that, what was the news today, that he might not be ready for the regular season? I might be making that up. Let me look it up here.
Yeah, the website's Fade the Noise. I'll fade the Michel. I'm not taking him. He's off my board. I would actually take an undrafted other player that's on the same team and is running back.
Yeah.
Over him.
Athletics' Jeff Howe said that Michel is uncertain for the start of football activities. He had that surgery on his foot in May, and 29 total games in his career. He's had 13 touchdowns, over 1,800 rushing yards, but the injuries are piling up, Dave.
And he's not a pass-catching back. You're a half.
I always thought he was, and then Belichick never put him in position to catch passes.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? That's kind of a little bit of a misspeak. He's not a back that is permitted to catch passes on the Patriots.
I mean, he caught passes in college, did he not?
Yeah, he is. He's a person who's capable of catching passes. He's just not as good as James White at it. So,
yeah, maybe that's why they
could give two shits. Yeah. He's like, well, I mean, hey, sorry, James White's the pass catcher because he's way better than you are.
Yeah, which is probably true.
It is true.
You know what's weird? James White never caught passes in college.
Really?
Because he went to Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, they didn't even throw the ball. They
didn't throw the ball to backs, tight ends, receivers, anybody.
Half the offensive snaps, they didn't have a quarterback out there. It's just direct snaps all the time. They'd have 7 linemen out there with regularity. Moving on here, after Michel, you have Irv Smith.
What is going on? Oh my God!
Finally,
Rodgers just got drafted in the 14th round.
Which, by the way, goes to Davidson and Rodder, who you thought might take him in the 12th when they took Stafford, and they still get him.
Unbelievable.
All right, so I'll get to that in a second here.
My favorite team, Mark Davidson's team.
All right, Irv Smith to Eric Rubin, the old soul, Irv Smith, at the 13:04 tonight. Duke Johnson and Chris Thompson right after that. Dodds and Davidson take him. Curtis Samuel to Rich Rebar. A.J. Dillon off the board to Glenn Lowy, like that pick. Will Dissly is backing up Darren Waller at tight end for Brad Evans. Sammy Watkins and Robbie Anderson off the board to Matthew Jacobson and Josh Hornsby, respectively. And then you have Dawson Knox, a favorite of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour honchos, as he is the number 2 tight end for Scott Covey. I like Dawson Knox, Dave. Not sure I'm on board with him as the backup tight end for me. I think he's got screaming third tight end value for me. I don't know if I like him as a backup, though.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with you. It's like, now what are you looking at? Eifert as your third? It's like, ouch.
Funny. That's
not a big fan.
That's what I had to do in the Scott Fishbowl because I waited, and I took Eifert as my third tight end, and you don't even took a hot shower and burned all my clothes.
Yeah, exactly. You don't even cross your fingers. You cross
terrible.
like all your toes and stuff.
Yes.
To hope you don't have anything.
Oh, God, yeah. What's the over-under on games played for Eifert this year, just curiously?
7 and a hook.
I'd take the under. All right, so moving on here to the 14th round. A lot to talk about here. Carlos Hyde to Scott Covey to lead things off. Teddy Bridgewater off the board as the number 3 quarterback drafted by Josh Hornsby. Justice Hill to Matthew Jacobson after that. Joe Burrow will be backing up Kyler Murray for Brad Evans, Fade the Noise Squad. Damian Harris, the interesting guy that we were sort of alluding to before. He's sort of the interesting guy in New England right now. Glenn Lowy with back-to-back interesting picks at running back. Both of them that I like, Dylan and Damian Harris there. Roethlisberger to Rich Rebar. Aaron Rodgers. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. Devin Funchess is the great. Devin Funchess is sitting out the season. Woo!
Yeah, that's what it was.
Red alert. You can't possibly draft Rodgers high anymore because those 350 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns have just gone away.
And 17 catches. Aaron Rodgers to Mark Davidson and Jacob Rodder tonight. Rodgers falls all the way to the 1407. For ADP's sake, I will say that he normally goes at the 10-12 as quarterback 14.
There you go. Wow. It's crazy. I mean, that's nice.
Justin,
it's actually pretty cool that we were able to just watch that happen.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, too, I was like, man, I need to get on Twitter. Maybe Rodgers said something. I will never play for a team that disrespected me as much as they did in the first round this year. Justin Jackson to David Dodds, Darrington Evans to Eric Rubin, Ryan Tannehill to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland at the 14-10, followed by Jerick McKinnon to Kevin Proctor. I'm surprised. I thought David Hubbard would find a way to get the Niners running backs in this draft tonight, too. Okay. Didn't happen. Henry Ruggs off the board as the third straight wide receiver drafted by Small as he goes Mike Williams, Deshaun Jackson, and Henry Ruggs in the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to share with you about Aaron Rodgers. So he was being interviewed by Kyle Brandt today, who is on Good Morning Football on the NFL Network. He's also with The Ringer. Former star of Days of Our Lives. I don't think you knew that. But
I only knew Marlena from when I was like 12.
Okay. So he was talking to Rodgers about draft night, and I guess Rodgers was he was waiting to see what receiver the Packers are going to draft. This is what he said. I was waiting to see what receiver they're going to draft.
Wow, I'm interested to hear this.
He said he really liked Justin Jefferson. He liked watching him play at LSU, and then the Vikings obviously drafted him. And then he's like, yeah, I can't remember what receiver he was talking about. I knew this kid was still out there, and I knew a lot about him, and I liked him. And he kept saying the kid out of Arizona State was still out there. I didn't know a lot about him. I knew the kid from Clemson was out there. I didn't know a lot about him. I saw him play a little bit, referring to Brandon Ayuk and T. Higgins, and then he saw the trade up. And so he got very excited to see who the pass catcher was. And before they made the pick, he gets a text from his agent that just says quarterback.
Oh, my God.
So after that...
I'd be so pissed. Given that framing, it's just,
yeah, man. So after that, he said he poured himself 4 fingers of tequila. And then...
I've always hated Rodgers. I'm starting to like him a lot more.
So he poured himself 4 fingers of tequila and then got just a deluge of text messages from friends and family just saying sorry, or versions of sorry, Not so much that his time...
like $150 million.
Well, yeah, I mean, not so much that his time was up in Green Bay, but that the fact that he didn't get the pass catcher that he was hoping for.
Right, yeah.
I think that's how I took it.
Wow.
And then he said he just spent the rest of the night drinking tequila and FaceTiming a lot, calling people that night. And then
he's kind of like Nick Manderfield.
He kind of, yeah.
Or Meyer.
He's doing a little drunk FaceTiming. And then so then the next day, I guess, the one thing he did want to make sure he did was he wanted to call Jordan Love the next day and just
like, hey, you're a total douchebag.
Yeah.
You suck. He should have drunk tweeted him.
So what he ended up doing, it's like he called and he said, he's like, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to let him know sort of what was going on and where I stood because I don't want to have, when you get a dream come true like that to be picked in the first round of the NFL, you don't want to come into the situation with a bunch of perceived negativity around it. And
just, I'm not helping you with the playbook at all.
Right. And Rodgers was very, I mean, again, what he actually does, we'll see. And I've heard, it's weird, I've heard such polarizing stuff on it. Like, some people are like, there's no way Rodgers will treat Love the way Favre treated him. And then you hear the other side of the argument, like, Rodgers doesn't give a crap about Jordan Love,
Favre was awful to Rodgers.
He was.
Yeah. He really was. I mean, say what you will about Brett Favre. He's a great quarterback. He did a lot of great things.
And I don't necessarily fault Favre for that, too. Because
it's fine, whatever. I get it. You're a competitor.
Exactly. At the highest level, and this is the way you've been trained your whole life. It's tough to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be, Johnny Good Two Shoes or whatever and toe the company line now. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on.
That's really good. Thanks.
So yeah, there's I really I was reading the article on it. I wanted to watch the interview, but Rodgers is kind of like, I was hoping to finish my career here. Look at the facts. I probably won't. They like this guy. They want to play this guy. But I understand
the new management's a bunch of idiots.
He said he's like, I understand it's a business. I was disappointed. Who wouldn't be? And so I think he's ready to just kick butt, take names, and then keep doing that for whatever team he's with after Green Bay, which, Godspeed. All right, so moving on to the 15th round. Derek Carr and Drew Lock, pair of quarterbacks, kick it off with Smola and Proctor here. And then we get a pair of receivers, Rashad Perriman to Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland, Michael Pittman at the 15:04 to Eric Rubin. Then you get Gerald Everett off the board as the third tight end selected by David Dodds. Larry Fitzgerald right after him to Davidson and Rodder. Brandon Ayuk, another receiver drafted, and I'll bring this up again. Only 3 rounds left, and Rebar has not taken a running back since round 5. O.J. Howard is the third tight end to Glenn Lowy, followed by Hunter Renfrow to Brad Evans, the Las Vegas slot receiver. Oh, that's interesting. I play the Las Vegas slot. That is quite the position for the Raiders. Jimmy Graham, after that, the corpse of Jimmy Graham, as I like to refer to him. Is this the first time? I don't even know if this is the case. Now that I think of it, I'm just racking my brain on the last 2 Pros versus Joes. Did Jimmy Graham get drafted in either of those? I don't remember saying his name. I think it's the first time I've said his name.
You might be right,
I
don't remember either.
Jimmy Graham, anyway, goes to Matthew Jacobson tonight. And then Rashad Penny at the 15-11 to Josh Hornsby. Greg Olsen, the third tight end selected to Scott Colby. What do you make of Greg Olsen in Seattle this year? Because I didn't think much of it, and I'm starting to reconsider that I might be missing something there.
I don't mind Greg Olsen as I probably he works well with that team actually with Dawson Knox and Hooper. He actually could be productive. He doesn't get hurt very frequently. It's got a great quarterback. It is a low volume pass attack, but I'd give it a shot. Why not?
It's okay.
By the way, we did hear Adam Troutman's name last
Yes,
time.
we did. Yes, we did.
So, to hear Jimmy Graham, I think it's okay.
One of the things I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed, you don't listen to near as many podcasts as I do, Dave. I feel like
not the same types, I'll tell you that much.
Not the same types, you're right. But with the lack of news and the lack of actual, stuff going on, be it minicamp, OTAs, training camps haven't officially started yet. Do you see they're going to have to pass 3 tests in order to get in the facility now, players?
Good. More the merrier. Hey, you know what I want to happen? The FFPC events to all go.
Yeah, I would too. I would love that.
A full season.
I'm just trying to think if I've ever passed 3 tests on the same thing in my life. I don't think I ever have. I can fake my way through 1, maybe 2. 3, no chance.
There won't be any math.
Well, thank God for that. I am a journalist by trade, Dave. There's a lot of journalists. Did you know there's a lot of math journalist jokes out there?
Just because you made made journalist mistakes by choosing journalism doesn't mean you're not a smart. You're still a smart person.
There's another journalist joke right there.
Bulky's actually smart. He scored well in the ACT. I forgot what it was. It was in the 30s.
I got lucky on that.
With no prep. It's not like nowadays.
I prepped for it. I took a class and everything.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but remember I got run over by a car the day before I took it. I told you that story.
That's right.
Didn't even finish the science section. I couldn't move my arm.
You did prep. That's fine. So back in my day, they didn't have prep. Well, they did, but probably only on the East and West Coast.
What was I just talking about now? Before
something cool.
Greg Olson. So what I've noticed on a lot of these podcasts is with the lack of real stuff to talk about, I feel like everybody's being uber positive on a lot of players to the point where I feel like everyone's a breakout this year.
Oh, really?
Like it's just it's so like and this guy could be this guy could be this guy could be this, and it's just you get so excited because there's no bad draft picks. When the reality of the situation is a lot of these guys will not, and this is where I think
it's just funny you're saying this because we're about to say that 10 out of these 12 teams are great.
I was about to say 13 of these 12
exactly.
teams.
Go ahead, Mr. Positivity.
This is another thing I want to bring up. There's this perceived, oh my God, wide receivers so deep this year. It's insane. Wide receivers have never been this deep. And I feel like once we play the season out, people are going to be like, oh my God, this sleeper receiver I got in round 10 he had 30 catches this year. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of players that let a lot of people down at the wide receiver position.
Yes, that's true.
And I feel like with everybody going running back early this season, myself included for the most part, the teams that go wide receiver early, maybe we'll see what happens with, zero RB could make a comeback this year. I don't know.
It's possible.
Just thoughts I've been having lately.
There's been fewer running back injuries than normal the past few years. So
last year there was like none. Amongst the heavy hitters, obviously.
Yeah, that really was a problem for the zero RB crowd.
And now it's just the diehards that are left. Everybody's like, I'm never doing zero RB again.
Jumping ship.
You guys don't know what the hell you're talking about. 16:01 tonight. Giovanni Bernard goes off the board to Scott Kobe. James Washington to Josh Hornsby after that. Josh Reynolds, Mr. Irrelevant last night. Josh Reynolds goes off at the 16:03 tonight. Vance McDonald after that to Brad Evans, and then you have Antonio Brown making an appearance tonight, this time to Glenn Lowy. Interesting there. Alan Lazard, the newly minted, freshly confirmed number 2 wide receiver for the Green Bay Football Packers, goes to Rich Rebar there. Steven Sims to who took him there? That was Davidson Rodder takes Steven Sims. Paris Campbell to David Dodds. Laviska Shenault, rookie wide receiver for Jacksonville, off the board tonight at the 16:09 to Eric Rubin at Jungle Cats FF on Twitter. Jimmy Garoppolo backing up Ryan Tannehill, who's backing up Dak Prescott for the Brian Drake, Dwayne McFarland experience, going off at the in the third spot tonight. Jalen Hurd, another Niner wide receiver unknown. He goes tonight with the penultimate pick of the 16th round, and then Jamal Williams, the final pick of the 16th round, to Jared Smola and the Draft Sharks family there. Dave, I don't know if anything sticks out to you in the 16th round. I guess I'll steer you to this conversation. When the rookie drafts happened, Michael Pittman was a popular name, and I feel like a few weeks after that, people were still talking up Pittman as being so polished and ready to contribute, even though he was a rookie receiver. You kind of threw cold water on that in regards to him versus T.Y. Hilton for draft value. Hilton's still going way earlier,
sure, but
he's going to get more targets this year, and he's done it before. Where do you fall in on the number 2 receiver for Indianapolis catching passes from Phillip Rivers? Number 1, is it fantasy relevant? And number 2, do you like Paris Campbell or Michael Pittman there better? And as far as draft value goes, I got you there. I'll tell you this right now. Paris Campbell normally goes at the 15-10 in this format. Michael Pittman normally goes at the 15-07. So basically the same spot.
I would have to lean towards Paris Campbell. I mean, just that he's been there. And then you have Zach Pascal kind of hanging around. Is that not correct?
He might be. I'll be honest with you. I have not pursued it that far yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at. I pull up the Football Guys depth charts, and they actually they list Zach Pascal as the number 2 over Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman. They might be totally wrong, probably are. Whatever, it's just not updated. I just can't see a rookie like Pittman necessarily as I can't see him over Paris Campbell personally. I'm probably avoiding both though. I'm not that interested in the number 2 receiver in Indianapolis.
Looking up right now, ourlads.com does have Zach Pascal up there as well, although they do have Pittman ahead of him on the depth chart. They don't have Paris Campbell they have as a slot. Okay, so they have technically both out of Zach Pascal.
Pittman may start on the outside if he gets that job. If you have to learn the playbook, know how to run routes. If you can do
and he's a good blocker too, which I know Indianapolis values with that offensive line and those running backs.
That's great point.
Okay, so moving on to the 17th round here, Dave. The third quarterback drafted by Jared Smola is indeed Kirk Cousins. Sam Darnold off the board after that. Boy, look at those quarterbacks for Kevin Proctor. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Sam Darnold. If that doesn't want to make you pull all the hair out of your head, I don't know what will. Reichwell Armstead, and it'll probably work out. Reichwell Armstead at the 1703, followed by Gardner Minshew. Speaking of hair pulling, he's backing up Lamar Jackson here for Eric Rubin. D.D. Westbrook to David Dodds, Kyle Rudolph after that to Mark Davidson and Jacob Rodder. Then you have Anthony McFarland going off the board to Rich Rebar, and we talked about this, Dave. Does he draft another running back? He does draft one more, maybe two. We'll see what happens there. But McFarland is who he goes back and attacks the position with here in the 17th round. Phillip Rivers, Ryan Fitzpatrick off the board, and then Tua Tagovailoa, trio of quarterbacks there after Rebar takes McFarland. It is Lowy, it is Evans, it is Jacobson taking Rivers, Fitzpatrick, and Tagovailoa respectively. Miles Boykin and Randy Cobb finishing off the 17th round. Randy goes off the board. Was he the forgotten man? No, Devontae Adams was the forgotten man in our little fantasy circle here, inside joke. Miles Boykin, do you like him at all in Baltimore this year as a receiver? I mean, there's Marquise Brown, but he's hurt a lot. Outside of that, it's like Willie Snead. I don't know, man.
I mean, for the price, I love Miles Boykin for the price, right?
Yeah.
He's big, he's fast, strong, second-year player, coming out of Notre Dame, smart. And he's super
coming out of Notre Dame.
He's super cheap. You don't get into Notre Dame with a 20 ACT. This isn't Alabama. This isn't Florida State.
Come on. That was a cheap shot.
Some sort of a Brady.
Florida State's
Notre Dame.
Home of Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah.
Now I'm forgetting what his name was. Myron Roll. God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't tell me that.
The only time you get a discount on the ACT at Notre Dame is if you're like a diehard Catholic, and then that's the benefit too. So,
right.
Yeah, Boykin. Yeah, I like him. I like him for the price. I mean, he's super cheap. He goes in normal best ball. He's like in the mid-20s. How do you? He's like the 26th, 27th round pick.
Yeah.
In the regular best balls.
I'm just trying to think what. I don't have that in front of me, but 1705 right here in the Slims. What do you make of the Jacksonville receiver situation this year? Is it Chark or no one, or do you see some value in a guy like D.D. Westbrook, a guy like Laviska Shenault? Is there anything there? Because I know they want to run the ball again.
I can see taking a shot on D.D. Well, I mean, he's got a possibility. Shenault, I don't mind him from a dynasty perspective, but I think, again, as a rookie, I don't think he does much.
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't know. I don't think there's much value after Chark.
Well, that's fine.
I know it's – listen, 17th round, Dodds takes Westbrook. It is what it is. Who cares? But it's an interesting stab.
You know, the thing is
wasn't Westbrook supposed to be the number one, like the future number one there?
Yeah, I never have liked Westbrook, but he's very inexpensive at this point.
Yeah.
And so, the thing about Minshew is we don't know what he's going to do as second season. It could be
on or off the field.
It could be pretty awesome. I mean, what? I mean, it's not possible that he's great.
Anything's possible, Dave. Kevin Garnett taught me that. Let's move on to the 18th round here because we are just about done. Mohamed Sanu goes off the board to Scott Colby. Then you have Russell Gage to Josh Hornsby. Danny Amendola continuing a mini wide receiver run here. Actually, a full wide receiver run as this is 6 consecutive wide receivers drafted. Amendola to Matthew Jacobson. Josh Gordon, first time we're calling his name. Josh Gordon goes to Brad Evans here. Dwayne Haskins, the number 3 quarterback. For Glenn Lowy. Oh, that's interesting. Brady, Rivers, and Haskins. Eifert right after that. The aforementioned Tyler Eifert.
Eifert, hey, baby.
Yeah, Cole Beasley and Corey Davis go back-to-back in the 18th round. Tyrod Taylor backing up Gardner Minshew for Team Ruben at Jungle Cats FF. Tyrell Williams, Alshon Jeffrey, and then C.J. Uzomah wrapping things up tonight for the 2020 FFPC Pros versus Joe's Thin Lizzy League number 3. Jared Smola had the first pick in McCaffrey. He gets the last pick in C.J. Uzomah. By the way, Wasp guy, Kern Reeve, our buddy, chiming in the chat room. Quantum physics, everything is indeed possible.
So true.
Minshew for MVP, I think, is what we're hearing. Get in on that while the getting's good.
I'm sure there's a parallel universe where Gardner Minshew is the MVP.
Really?
Yeah,
I guess.
There's unlimited universes.
The multiverses?
Sure.
All right, so let's get into the team construction here, Dave, as we motor through the back end of our analysis. Jared Smola, the quarterbacks are Carson Wentz, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. Running backs, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, J.K. Dobbins, Kerryon Johnson, Jamal Williams at running back. Wide receivers, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Boyd, Marvin Jones, Mike Williams, Deshaun Jackson, Henry Ruggs, tight ends Zach Ertz, Jonnu Smith, C.J. Uzomah. This is a very Smola-esque team is how I would describe it. It's pretty balanced. The depth, I know you and I aren't big Jonnu Smith guys. I think that the depth I would question is at tight end, but solid everywhere else. I like the squad.
Yeah, I think he did a really nice job. It's a really well-balanced team. Every position is solid. I mean, Kerryon Johnson at the 11:01, I don't know where he normally goes, but that seems cheap for him. I'm guessing like the 9th. J.K. Dobbins at the 7th. I mean, every pick, Mike Williams, Deshaun Jackson, Ruggs, they all make a lot of sense. I thought Smola really did well here.
9:04 for Kerryon Johnson on average.
Look at that. What is that? 11:01. That's solid. It's almost 2 rounds.
Almost 2 rounds. Nice job, Jared Smola. Kevin Proctor, the FFPC Joe, in the second spot tonight. He gets Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Sam Darnold, the balding quarterbacks, as I put them before, or I'm putting them now. Running backs, Saquon Barkley, Raheem Mostert, Darius Geis, Alexander Madison, Antonio Gibson, Jerick McKinnon. Receivers, Mike Evans, Allen Robinson, DJ Chark, Golden Tate, Jalen Hurd, and Alshon Jeffrey. Tight ends, Noah Fant, Chris Herndon, and Blake Jarwin. Dave, far be it from me to say anything critical about Kevin Proctor's team. Kevin Proctor, a guy who has so much best ball experience. I think he's going to have a couple of things break right at running back for him to be pretty good there. And I think you could make the case that he's going to need big seasons out of Evans, Robinson, and Chark. Now, he may get those, and he may be likely to get those. But I like the quarterbacks as much as I rip on them. I like the quarterbacks, and I like the tight end trio here.
I loved his first 5 picks. After that, those aren't players I'm actually really would have been drafting necessarily. But, I mean, he could do well. I mean, I thought Golden Tate in the 13th was solid. And the quarterbacks will probably work out. I'm not sure about the tight ends. I mean, there's question marks. I mean, none of them, they all have something to prove, really, right? Fant, Herndon, and Jarwin. So I think that's where that'll be his pivot right there as the tight end.
Would you have taken J.K. Dobbins over Darius, guys?
Yeah, for sure I would.
I think I would have too. Makes it look a little bit better. Although then you're counting, it's like, do you want a starting running back or do you want a backup running back as your number 3?
I mean, the question is Geis. I mean, his health. I mean, no one knows for sure what's going to happen. We'll just have to see. I don't buy it.
Okay. Not even Geis, by the way. Remember when he tore his ACL and he said, "Oh yeah, all is well," and then we got the report from the MRI. Yeah, all is not well. Yeah, you have a torn ACL. Yeah. It's really bad.
I mean, Geis is actually a solid person. I really wish it was for him. So I always crap on him in these things. So I just, good luck.
Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland from the 3rd spot tonight. Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Cam Akers, Jordan Howard, Chase Edmonds, Sony Michel, Raquel Armstead. Receivers, DJ Moore, A.J. Brown, Julian Edelman, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Reagor, Rashad Perriman, and Tyrell Williams. Tight ends are Mark Andrews and Tyler Higbee. Dave, if he gets one of those rookie receivers to pan out, he'll be fine. I should say they will be fine at that position. Running back, what an island of misfit toys. If you look at that core, Elliott, Akers, Jordan Howard, Edmonds, Michelle, Armstead, it was such a bizarre order to get them in, and just who they are as players to me is interesting. I think it's an all right core. It's hard on the eyes to lolook at.
I thought Tyrell Williams in the 18th round was a nice pick, and Perriman. I think his receivers turned out actually pretty good. I do question running back. I mean, you have either Akers or Howard is going to have to emerge as the RB2.
Yeah,
I mean,
because Michelle, you're assuming Michelle is not.
I think the Michelle pick, respectfully, was a mistake.
Moving on to Jungle Cats, Eric Rubin's selections here. Lamar Jackson, Gardner Minshew, and Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Mark Ingram, Tariq Cohen, Darrington Evans at running back. Receivers are Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk, Darius Slayton, Preston Williams, N'Keal Harry, Michael Pittman, and Laviska Shenault. Tight ends are Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst, and Irv Smith. Dave, I don't think I would have drafted a third quarterback with Lamar Jackson. I think the top three running backs are top four I could get on board with, but he's a little naked after that, as it were, and he's really going to need a couple of breakouts at receiver.
He will need that. He does have, Henry and Hurst is pretty solid. And then,
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention the tight ends. I like the tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. Henry and Hurst, I mean, possibly both of them are going to do well. At least one will. And Lamar Jackson, I mean, you cannot discount Lamar Jackson. So getting Kamara, Godwin, I thought was a little bit of a gift in the second round, so good for him. And then Jonathan Taylor in the fourth. I mean, I thought he picked off a lot of value here in this draft. I do like his team. I think someone will emerge at wide receiver for him. Again, I didn't like the Cohen pick. I thought Edelman or Marvin Jones would have been better for him, but that's fine.
About a full round of value on Jonathan Taylor, according to FFPC ADP.
Yeah, nicely done.
All right, David Dodds from Football Guys. Moving on, Patrick Mahomes and Jared Goff at quarterback. Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Ronald Jones, Latavius Murray, Duke Johnson, and Justin Jackson at running back. Wide receivers are Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Sterling Shepard, Paris Campbell, Dede Westbrook, Corey Davis. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Dallas Goedert, and Gerald Everett. I look at this squad, Dave, and I'm on board with Mahomes and Goff, obviously. I'm on board with the tight ends here. I actually really like the tight ends, quite frankly. The running backs are good for the first three, and then after that, those guys will have their weeks, Murray, Johnson, and Jackson. And then the receivers, the top three are very, very good, and then he gets a lot of, just guys late that will hopefully have the Devery Henderson 1 week effect on this lineup. So this is a good team.
Dobbs didn't call in. I emailed him.
They're going to say nothing positive about his team.
Yeah, and his team sucks. No, I mean, to be honest, the one thing I really like about his team is it has 0 rookies on it. I think his team actually, and I don't know if he did that on purpose, he's got all veterans, and this is a veteran-type year. I like his team quite a bit. It worked out really well for him. Gronk, Goddard, Everett with Mahomes, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Ronald Jones. So, I mean, if Ronald Jones works out, I mean, he's going to have a really solid team. And then Murray, Duke Johnson, Justin Jackson, those are all producer-type players. So I like his team. I like how he put it all together. So good job, Dodds.
The Discount Double Check Albatross team here, and Mark Davidson and Jacob Rotter, this is what they put together.
Very good.
Drew Brees, Matthew Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Running backs are Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Devin Singletary, Phillip Lindsay, Chris Thompson at running back. Receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green, Jarvis Landry, Emmanuel Sanders, Larry Fitzgerald, Steven Sims, and Cole Beasley. Tight ends, Travis Kelce, Jared Cook, and Kyle Rudolph. Dave, love the quarterbacks, love the tight ends. I can definitely get on board with the running backs, even though there's only 5 of them. Chris Thompson should be a pass catcher. Phillip Lindsay, I think, still gets worked into that Denver backfield, too. And then you look at the receivers. We're kind of questioning it a little bit with A.J. Green being the number 2 at the 6th spot. But Landry after that, Emmanuel Sanders after that, and then to get Fitz, Sims, and Beasley late. Really good team, very competitive team. I don't want to say it's the best team in this league, but I think it's top 3.
It's funny because I feel like they did exactly what Dodds did about taking all veterans. I mean, there's, again, no rookies at all. But they picked off so much value. Rodgers was a great pick. Brees, Stafford, Rodgers at quarterback is fantastic. I like this team overall. Even, I know I kind of dogged A.J. Green. But if he's healthy, oh, my goodness. I mean, if he's healthy and back to a top 12 wide receiver, it's over. These guys got it.
All right, so let's get to Rich Rebar from Sharp Football Analysis here. Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback. Running backs, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kareem Hunt, and Anthony McFarland at running back. Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, Michael Gallup, Deontay Johnson, Mecole Hardman, Curtis Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Alan Lazard at receiver. Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, and Tyler Eifert at tight end. probably the best running back core in the league, I would say, especially if Eckler and Edwards-Helaire return the second and third round value. It's good night, sweet chariots I'm mixing my euphemisms and cliches here. They have the best Rich has the best running backs in the league. Cobbled together a really deep and good, talented receiver core. Might have been at the expense at tight end, though. Doyle, Ebron, Eifert, good for him drafting 3 of them, Dave. But I have low expectations for Eifert. I know you like Ebron a little bit better than I do. I actually do like Doyle. Maybe not as my starter, though.
Yeah, that's like the only weakness of the team, though. They did pretty well. I mean, again, all 12 of these drafters are doing well. So I like his receivers. Maybe not Deontay Johnson or Hardman as much, but I thought Ayak and Lazard, Samuel, they all make sense.
We've seen Lazard drafted in PVJ the last couple of nights.
Generally speaking, I actually feel like Lazard goes around that spot or earlier. And with the Funchess news, I'm surprised he
slipped. Yeah,
I'm surprised he was waited that long.
It was the Dalvin Cook situation. Oh, he reported. Now we're going to draft him later.
Yeah, I mean, and we can't.
And Rebar got him too, by the way.
Yeah, speaking of discounting, you can't discount getting Dalvin Cook at the 7th pick. That's a nice pick.
Yeah. Glenn Lowy moving on here to his squad from the 8th spot. Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Dwayne Haskins. Running backs, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, Tevin Coleman, Zach Moss, A.J. Dillon, Damian Harris. The receivers, Tyreek Hill, Kenny Golladay, DK Metcalf, Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Brown. Tight ends, Mike Gesicki, Ian Thomas, and O.J. Howard. I look at the running backs, and he's going to have some stuff break right. You know, you look at Moss, Dillon, and Harris, a lot of upside there, but they are blocked as of right now.
Yep.
That may change even in the near future, but right now there's some issues there. Tevin Coleman, you could lump in with that as well. The receivers are very deep and good. They're very good. He took 5 of them early and then only took Antonio Brown after that. I don't know if that will be enough. I'm also not a huge fan of the tight ends. Gesicki's fine as your starter. Ian Thomas is okay as your backup. I don't know how I feel about O.J. Howard.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And then, you know, certain players he took I just am not a fan of. And so it just is my personal preference. Carson, Marquise Brown, Tevin Coleman, those are just guys that I'm just generally not all that interested in. I thought Damian Harris was a nice value for him.
I agree.
And Antonio Brown, I just don't see him coming back.
Me neither. Brad Evans, fade the noise. Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. Running backs are Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette, Keyshawn Vaughn, Marlon Mack, Tony Pollard, Naheem Hines. Wide receivers, Julio Jones, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Parker, Jamison Crowder, Hunter Renfrow, and Josh Gordon. Tight ends are Darren Waller, Will Dissly, Vance McDonald. Running back is incredibly deep. Quarterbacks are fine. I question the receivers, and I really question the tight ends here, Dave. I don't like Dissly as a second guy. Quite frankly, I don't care for McDonald at all.
Yeah, even though you don't like Ebron for some reason.
I don't like any Pittsburgh tight ends.
Well, I disagree with you.
Yeah, that's fine. I like one Pittsburgh tight end. Is Jalen Samuels.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, actually. And Sutton and Parker are just not players I generally will take. So it's hard for me to like his team when his 2 and 3 wide receivers are just not guys I avoid. Although I do like Crowder and Renfrow quite a bit, the 2 slot players for those teams. Yeah,
no, and that could work out for sure.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on to Matthew Jacobson from the 10 spot. Excuse me. You have Deshaun Watson and Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback. You have Josh Jacobs, Le'Veon Bell, DeAndre Swift, Darrell Henderson, Boston Scott, Justice Hill at running back. Receivers are Amari Cooper, T.Y. Hilton, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, Sammy Watkins, Josh Reynolds, and Danny Amendola. Tight ends are George Kittle, Jay Sternberger, and Jimmy Graham. It's weird because I can kind of get on board with this construction of a team, but I also don't like some of these players. I don't like Graham. I don't like Justice Hill. I'm not a huge Justin Jefferson fan this year. I'm not a big Darrell Henderson guy. So it's a good mix of bulky picks and anti-bulky picks on this one. So I think it's a solid, if unspectacular team.
It's tough for me to, his quarterbacks, you have Deshaun Watson, who's great, but then you have Tua, who you don't even know if he's in a playoff season.
Right.
And then that's it. So you have like 1.5 quarterbacks. So to me, that's a concern. I don't mind the Jimmy Graham pick, and then I actually think Sternberger should be moving up a little bit with Funchess being out. So I think that's actually a solid pick. to go with Kittle. But, yeah, I agree with what you're saying on a lot of these guys. I think that Jerry Jeudy and Justin Jefferson, the JJ, is kind of nice, too.
You like Justin Jefferson this year? Just curious.
No, I don't actually.
You like Jeudy, though?
I like Jeudy.
Yeah.
I don't like Jefferson.
All right, so Josh Hornsby from Roto Grinders here. Baker Mayfield, Cam Newton, and Teddy Bridgewater as his signal callers. Nick Chubb, Kenyon Drake, James White, Matt Breida, Rashad Penny at running back. Wide receivers, Odell Beckham, Juju Smith-Schuster, Will Fuller, Deebo Samuel, Robbie Anderson, James Washington, Miles Boykin, and Russell Gage at wide receiver. Evan Engram and TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Good depth at receiver, Dave. Some big play guys there. Good depth at quarterback. I think he'll be okay there. Pretty heavy hitters at the top with the running backs, and I like White and Breida in the middle. Question for me, are Engram and Hawkinson enough at tight end?
I think they might be enough at tight end. I do have concerns about wide receiver. You have Beckham, who's consistently not putting in good seasons. Juju had a bad season last year. Will Fuller is always hurt. Deebo Samuel is hurt. Robbie Anderson, I don't know, is he the 2 or the 3 on that team?
3.
James Washington, he's the 3, right? And then, so the receivers, I have a lot of concern about the receivers on that team, actually. I don't mind how the quarterbacks turned out, Mayfield, Cam, and Bridgewater. I'm looking at receiver, and I'm questioning that.
Final team, we're going to look at the FFPC. Joe Scott Kobe here from the 12 spot. Russell Wilson and Josh Allen are his quarterbacks. Running backs, Joe Mixon, Melvin Gordon, Damian Williams, Joshua Kelly, Carlos Hyde, and Giovanni Bernard. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Anthony Miller, John Brown, Randall Cobb, Mohamed Sanu. Tight ends are Austin Hooper, Dawson Knox, and Greg Olsen. I can definitely get on board with the receivers. I can definitely get on board with the tight ends. And I think he's fine at quarterback with Russell Wilson and Josh Allen. The position of question for me, I guess, Mixon, Gordon, Damian Williams, okay. That's all right for your top 3 running backs. If he gets a few solid weeks, starter weeks out of Kelly, Hyde, or Bernard, he could really be making a deep run here as far as winning this league goes.
Drafting out of the 12 spot's always tough, and I feel like Scott, even though I thought Ridley was a bit of a reach, and even Damian Williams, I don't know I forgot where you normally get drafted. I think he acquitted himself pretty well. I like his team overall. I think it's pretty well balanced. There's certain players I wouldn't have loved, but I mean, Cooper, Knox, Olsen, solid. Quarterbacks are good. Running backs good. Wide receivers good. It's all good, man. So I think I like his team.
Damian Williams normally goes to the 604, so we got him almost right on the spot for that.
Yeah,
so makes sense. So that is going to do it for our coverage, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I want to thank Darren Armani, Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, our producer, mutual friend Rob, audio engineer, and my best friend Bryce. Most of all of our listeners tonight. I want to remind everybody that the HSFFR will return this Friday at 10/9 Central for our normal time. We'll have some high-stakes players on, or at least one high-stakes player on, to talk about pros versus shows, talk about the main event, the Football Guys Players Championship. That is coming up at 10/9 Central on Friday. Don't forget, we return with the second half of Pros versus Joe's coverage this year, Sunday night at 8/7 Central. Joe's including Robert and Robbie Russell, Paul Dietzman, Frank LaPrade, Todd Pavlik, Matt Groth, Chandler and Dalton Soprina. They will all be in action going up against Josh Hayes from Rotoballer, Establish the Runs, Evan Silva, John Paulson from 4 for 4, Fake Pidskins, Shane Hallam, who's in the chat room tonight. Dynasty Football Factory has Jeremy Brown in this draft, and of course Peter Overzet from 4 for 4, all drafting in Pros versus Joe's this Sunday at 8/7 Central. With that, we'll sign off for this evening. I want to remind everybody, if you have not gotten your FFPC main event teams paid off, registered, make sure you're doing that within the next 3 hours and 12 minutes so you can get those early draft slots on August 2nd. You'll know basically a full month ahead of time where you're going to be picking. You can plot your way to that $500,000 grand prize. Make those Planet Hollywood reservations. Sign up for the main event. Draft with Satellites Dynasty, the Football Guys Players Championship, and more. All at myffpc.com. Your week continues
this
now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I was just going to say, I didn't really pump up the Midnight Football Guys draft, but that starts in like 5 minutes.
And it's filled.
Okay, so forget, we got a 12:30 going on?
No.
Okay. All right, so we'll return live on Friday, everybody. Thanks for listening so much. We really appreciate you guys hanging out and watching these live drafts, and we will talk to you on Friday.